subcommittee will reconvene, and the chairman would like to announce that as at the request of the ranking member on the minority side, that the bill number the bill 40 number 4805 will be pulled from the agenda for today, and for the purpose of further deliberations between the minority and the majority. But at the request of the minority and the ranking member, the bill 4805 will be pulled from the agenda. So those who are in the hearing room, committee hearing room, who are here for that bill, I want you to know that that bill will not be considered today. It will be considered at a later date.
Mr. Chairman?
For what purposes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding. I just want to say that I'm on record to support this bill, as you know, and it's crucial to our industry and our environment and our nation's consumers and our public health. But it's important to note that there are a number of concerns that were brought up today that were not brought up previously, and this was a bipartisan legislation in the Senate, certainly, and I'd like to work towards that end, and I concur with the chairman to delay the proceedings on this bill. So I thank you very much.
The chair thanks the gentlelady, and the gentlelady has the chair's word that we will, and promise that we will work assiduously on the bill, and that we will bring this bill back before the subcommittee in short order.
I thank the chairman for that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
The chair recognizes, for what purposes?
To compliment the chairman.
Well, the chair, go ahead on, take as much time as you. Chair recognizes the ranking member for the full committee.
All right, thank you, Chairman Rush. I want to commend you and Congresswoman Matsui for withdrawing the formaldehyde bill. Mr. Whitfield and myself and others on the minority side understand that there's a problem. We recognize there's a problem. Our concern was with the proposed solution, how quickly it was been put together, and some of the specifics in that particular bill. But I too want to assure you and the gentlelady from California, we are prepared to work and not just obstruct. We want to find a solution that is beneficial to the consumer and to all 50 states. And so I do want to commend you for agreeing to postpone action on that bill. And I've already conferred with Mr. Whitfield, our ranking member on your subcommittee, and he and I both agree that this is something that we're more than willing to personally be involved with. And with that, I yield back.
The chair thanks the gentleman. I now recognize myself for the purpose of offering a manager's amendment to H.R. 3655. The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 3655 offered by Mr. Rush. Page 3, line 14. Insert clearly and conspicuously after disclosing.
The amendment has been distributed, and without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment. The manager's amendment before us now makes several technical changes to the legislation that strengthen it, but it does not change its substance or goals. The amendment clarifies several of the requirements for the Federal Trade Commission's rulemaking. It makes clear that all disclosures required to be made to consumers under the Act should be, quote, clear and conspicuous, end of quote. And it ensures that the requirements for cemetery record keeping apply to all burials occurring after the effective date of the regulation. The amendment also removes an extraneous and unnecessary reference to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. The goal of the bill is to ensure that consumer protection extends to all cemeteries, including religious cemeteries. We can achieve that goal without referencing this act. And finally, the bill ensures that states can enforce the existing funeral rules as well as any rules issued by the FTC following the enactment of this act. This is an important bill that is strengthened by these several changes, and I urge my colleagues to support the manager's amendment and support passage of the act. Does any member seek recognition on the amendment? If not,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have a few questions for council. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or later, but
yes, this is the appropriate time. The chair recognizes Mr. Whitfield.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I'd like to ask council is, I noticed there are provisions in this legislation regarding lawsuits in federal district courts and attorney generals and so forth, and will it be necessary that this bill be referred to the Judiciary Committee or not?
The bill was not referred to Judiciary.
Okay, so the parliamentarian has ruled that it's not necessary that we do that.
That's correct.
Okay. Second question, on page 7, when it talks about the Attorney General, there's a section on line 18. It says the Attorney General can bring legal action to obtain damages, restitution, or other compensation on behalf of residents of such state. I'm not a legal scholar, but I know that frequently attorney generals will try to enjoin the enforcement of an act or that's illegal. But under this particular line, the Attorney General would actually have the authority to file a civil suit to obtain damages for an aggrieved party. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And let's see. Do we know how many states have state rules and regulations relating to cemeteries or funeral homes? Do you have any idea on what that might be?
I don't have that in front of me. I know that many states do, and the states vary in the type of regulations that they have.
Okay. And I was wondering, how did we conclude on the cemeteries that we would exempt a cemetery at 25 interments?
The goal there was to exempt very small, particularly family cemeteries, generally on private land. Okay. We did not want this to cover those types of cemeteries. We wanted to make sure to cover cemeteries where commercial exchanges are taking place. And I believe this is taken from another state law, but I don't have that reference in front of me, which state we used.
Okay. And there is no federal preemption in this particular piece of legislation. Is that correct?
That's
okay.
That's correct. States can enact additional legislation.
All right. All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other questions at this point.
Is there any other member who seek recognition to speak on the amendment? The gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Schukowsky.
I just want to thank you. As you and I both know, there are lots of families and lots of agony over what happened at the cemetery, and I just appreciate your leadership on this. I yield back.
The chair thanks the gentlelady. Any other members seeking recognition? If not, there being no further discussion, the question is on the manager's amendment to H.R. 3655. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. The chair now calls up the bill where's the other bill at? Where's the other bill?
Mr. Chairman,
The ranking member is recognized.
is the bill before us now the bill as amended by your manager's amendment?
And that's correct.
Okay. I do have an amendment at the desk. I think structured to the manager's amendment. At least it was supposed to have been.
Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 3655 offered by Mr. Barton. Page 1, strike
I ask you
line
now
3.
that the amendment be considered as read, Mr. Chairman.
So ordered.
And I would ask to be recognized in support of my amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman. I don't think I'll take 5 minutes. What the amendment does, Mr. Chairman, is change the bill to require the FTC to conduct a study of this issue and report back to the Congress within 18 months, as opposed to the bill in its current form requires a mandatory rulemaking. Nobody questions the sincerity of your desire to prevent in the future what happened in your home state and in other states in terms of unscrupulous cemetery association managers or owners violating the sanctity of existing graves. That's inexcusable, it's untenable, and I can't express anything but revulsion about that. Having said that, my understanding is that the issue you're trying to address is addressed at the state level, in most cases very firmly. So what this amendment would do would be to require the FTC to go out and study all the 50 state laws, determine to what extent the problem that you've had is actually occurred in other places, determine what disclosure requirements are in state laws, what the strength of state laws, what the relationship of state law is to the funeral law, which is, as you have pointed out, enforced by the FTC, and also to take an investigation into cemetery associations that are nonprofit. Then the FTC would have to report back to the Congress within 18 months on recommendations if they decide that a federal law is required. So this, instead of kind of preemptorily passing a federal law, this would simply require a study, but it would be a mandatory study, and it would be require a mandatory report back to the Congress, which would mean to this committee and in all probability to this subcommittee. So I would offer that with great respect for the chairman and the effort he's put into this issue. And I yield back.
The chair thanks the gentleman, and the chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. The amendment before us will call on the FCC to conduct a study of practices in the funeral industry and issue recommendations to states for minimum consumer protection standards. The amendment suggests that there is no federal role here and that we should rely on states to protect consumers from abuses in the federal and cemetery industry. In my opinion, that would be a serious mistake. We need to set a base level of consumer protection in this area. At our legislative hearing in January, the Honorable Judge Patricia Brown Holmes, the chairman of the Illinois Cemetery Oversight Task Force, provided to this subcommittee compelling testimony regarding the need for federal standards. She noted, and I quote, "The kind of disaster that we had in Illinois, had there been a federal law that required consumer protection, this might not have happened. But we had nothing," end of quote. She went on to discuss the survey of other states that her task force had conducted. According to the same Judge Holmes, we did look at some states, and what we found is that it was the tragedy that then brought about the need for the rule and regulation. I think that if we could get in and have the rule and regulation in the beginning, possibly it stops the tragedy. In my opinion, we can't wait for 50 individual states to experience 50 high-profile tragedies. We need minimum federal standards for consumer protection before this next crisis occurs. And with that, I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment. Is there any other member who seeks recognition?
Mr. Chairman, just one question. You referred to Judge Patricia Brown Holmes, and I do remember her testimony. And do we in the committee actually have the report that was prepared by her study group? If so, I hope that would be available. I personally would like to see it myself as we move forward. And I don't think our ranking member was suggesting necessarily that he had a foregone conclusion that this should be a state issue, but this amendment, I think, simply asks the Commission to study all the state laws and try to come up with some determination of what they're actually saying, because many of us are not really familiar with state laws on this issue. And that is one reason that I hope we do have this study that Ms. Holmes referred to as well.
In response to the ranking member, we do have the study. The study is available to the individuals, but I would ask that if you would defer your request, and I assure you that you will have a copy of the study prior to going to the full committee.
Yeah, I didn't mean now, but just before the full committee.
Oh yes, we will give you. In fact, the study will be made available to all the members of the subcommittee between now and the full committee. Is there any other member who seeks recognition on this bill? Seeing none, and there be no further discussion. The question is on the amendment to H.R. 3655. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed will say no. No. In the opinion of the chairs, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. The amendment is not agreed to, and therefore are there any other amendments? Does any other member seek recognition? There being no further discussion, I now move that the Subcommittee on Commerce, Trade, Consumer Protection forward H.R. 3655 as amended to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. No. In the opinion except for one, loud no. The ayes have it in H.R. 3655. The Marine Consumers Bill of Rights is favorably forwarded to the full committee. Are there any other the chair now calls up H.R. 3993, the Calling Card Consumer Protection Act. The clerk will report the title of the measure.
H.R. 3993, a bill to require accurate and responsible disclosure of the terms and conditions of prepaid telephone calling cards and services.
Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open to amendment at any point. The chair now recognizes himself to offer a manager's amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 3993, offered by Mr. Rush. Page 3, line 19, insert after the period the following. Such terms shall not include A. Any retail seller whose only activity with respect to the sale of prepaid calling cards is point of sale transactions with end user customers, or B, any person whose only activity with respect to the sale of prepaid calling cards.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Where's the statement? Where's the manager's statement? The chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. The bipartisan manager's amendment I am offering improves upon an already good piece of legislation. I would like to thank members and staff from both sides of the aisle for their work on this bill. In particular, I would like to thank Mr. Engel for his leadership and for introducing this critical piece of legislation. The amendment makes a number of technical and substantive changes to the bill, and I will highlight the most significant changes. The amendment excludes from definition of, quote, prepaid calling card distributor, end quote, certain retail merchants and persons who merely engage in the transport or delivery of prepaid calling cards. In addition, the amendment provides the FTC with the flexibility to develop disclosures that will benefit consumers and allow users of prepaid calling cards to comparison shop. Furthermore, the amendment includes a new preemption section that is similar to the language included in the bill as it passed the House in the 110th Congress. Under the amendment, state law that contains requirements regarding disclosures on calling cards or packaging would be preempted. In order to address industry concerns about the potential for inconsistent regulation, the amendment adds a new requirement that if the FCC should initiate a rulemaking on disclosures for prepaid calling cards, it must coordinate with the FTC. This new requirement is in addition to provisions currently in the bill that require the FTC to consult with the FCC. Finally, the amendment requires the FTC, in consultation with the FCC, to conduct a study of the prepaid wireless industry. And I urge my colleagues to support the manager's amendment. Does any other member seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman.
For what purposes does the ranking member seek recognition?
To speak on the manager's amendment.
The ranking member is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and your staff for working across the aisle with us on some of the concerns that we had expressed, particularly as it related to point-of-sale liability, which certainly had an impact on many small convenience stores around the country, as well as others, and also on the preemption issue. And I think this is a good piece of legislation, and simply wanted to thank you all for working with us and addressing some of our concerns. Thank you.
Does any other member seek recognition? If not, there be no further discussion. The question occurs on the manager's amendment. All those in favor by saying, will signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. I now move that the committee. Are there any other amendments to the bill? Seeing none, I now move that the subcommittee Forward H.R. 3993, the Calling Card Consumer Protection Act, as amended, to the full committee with a recommendation that the bill passes. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 3993, the Calling Card Consumer Protection Act, as amended, is favorably passed to the full committee. I ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make technical and conforming corrections to the measures forwarded at today's markup. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further business before the subcommittee, the meeting of the Subcommittee on Commerce, Trade, and Consumer Protection is hereby adjourned. Well, we had a couple of snafus, but that was okay. Yeah, from time to time.